Welcome to the Business Builder Way podcast, where we help business builders grow leadership skills and wisdom and stay grounded through hero stories. So let's get after it. Hey, business builders. I'm really excited today to be joined by one of our own, Scott Kallick. And Scott, you built a business years ago in route laundry, and we'll talk about that and the journey and some of the places you went in terms of who you had to be as an owner to successfully grow that and eventually sell it and exit from it. So we're going to go there. And then now you're a coach to startups and an angel investor, and you judge startup competitions. And in our community of business builders and in your Tuesday afternoon group, everybody really appreciates who you are, how you show up, your presence, because that whole journey that you've been on, you've done enough on the outside world. You've also done a lot of work on the inside, and that carries through whenever you ask questions of people, whenever you sometimes give advice to people about leadership or business growth or family or life. It all comes through because of that connection you've made inside. So I'm really excited to have this conversation, and thanks for showing up for us today, Scott.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's go back and where we're going to start today is I know that roughly it started with buying an existing business, this multi-unit laundry, and then over the course of years really grew. But take us back to the beginning. Business builders love to hear stories and how somebody else built it. So yeah, take us back.
Sure. Yeah. So I just I was in my late 20s and I had just gotten married, and I always knew that in my heart, I was an entrepreneur. And I had a job, and I had a pretty good job, and I actually liked what I was doing. I was a manufacturer's rep for several lines in consumer electronics, and it was upbeat, it was fun, it was fast paced. I enjoyed it, but I always knew that there was another gear that I had. So I just gotten married, and I got this opportunity to buy this little boutique company in Western PA. I was living in Chicago, and I never really anticipated or thought there was any chance I would leave Chicago. I really liked growing up there. I liked being there. I had my family and friends there. But this opportunity came, and my thought was, okay, we're going to buy this business and we're going to run it for 5 years, and we're going to pay down our debt that we incurred. And we'll have a nice little nest egg, and we can move back to Chicago and, start a family. And, but, we moved to Pennsylvania, and it was actually kind of funny because I didn't have a whole lot at that point. I think I had about $10,000 in the bank, and that was it. But I moved to Chicago, and I had gotten some financing. I had a bank behind me. And so, we packed up everything we had, which wasn't much. We just got married. And, and I'm starting to unpack, and I plug in my phone. You didn't have cell phones at that time. You just, had a regular.
Oh, you mean a phone, like
a phone.
Legit. Did it have a dialer on it?
It wasn't a rotary dial, but, it had little buttons on it.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, I plug it in. About a half hour later, the phone rings, and my dad's on the phone, and he had some inroads into some banks, and he's like, "Hey, I never anticipated this, but the bank pulled out of the deal." So I got everything half unpacked, and I'm like, "Okay, let's stop unpacking. We got to wait to see what happens." So anyway, all I had was my checkbook, and there's out of state checks. So I'm trying to go to the grocery store to buy groceries, and they're not taking my checks because it's out of state, and I got this, half unpacked. All my worldly goods are half unpacked, and we're sitting in this apartment, and so we had to wait about a week and a half till we got some financing, and then we got the financing, and the deal closed. So I just went to work. I started going out and knocking on doors and, seeing if we can place our machines and get some laundry contracts. And, and I introduced myself to all the customers we had, which wasn't much. We didn't buy a big company, but we had a few customers. And, and I actually, the largest customer we had, it was a housing authority. I walked in there and I was, in my late 20s. And, and, he said, well, I can throw your ass out of here. And I was afraid, I mean, it was represented about 20% of my business, and, and I had to calm myself down. I'm like, all right, but why would you do that? Why wouldn't you give me a chance? And he's like, no, I'm just busting your balls. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to throw you out of here. I'm going to give you a chance. But if you screw up, you're gone. I'm like, okay, well, if we screw up, you'll be the first to know. I'll call you. I'll let you know, and I'll make it right. And actually, they remain clients of mine, through 30 years. I grew with them, and so it was cool. But there were 20-hour days. I mean, I'd get in the office in the morning and get everything together. I'd go out. I'd make sales calls. I sign contracts. I'd come back. At 5:00. My wife, it was my wife and I, and we'd be in the office sometimes till 10:30, 11:00 at night. Go home, go to sleep, be back in the office by 6 in the morning. That was our life for the first probably 2-3 years. And we started growing, and we were, after about 6 months or so, we acquired another small route,
Bought it.
Yeah, we bought it in West Virginia, and that kind of rounded some things out for us. And then in about another year, we bought another route, which doubled our size at the time. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when you got the boutique, well, first of all, how did you hear about this boutique business for sale? You're in Chicago, it's in Pittsburgh. And what year was this roughly?
1988.
1980. I figured you'd know exactly.
1987, actually, but yeah.
87, you hear about this thing. How did you hear about this business?
Well, my dad had an accounting firm in Chicago, and he had a client who was in this business, and he had helped this client, go national, acquire this national company. And at the time there were a lot of junk bonds and a lot of funky financing, and this client, bought this business, but he had, it wasn't like today. He was probably 16-17% interest rates, that he had. And, your typical, it was probably $100 million business back then, which was a big business back then. Not as big now, but was then. And, typical business school would tell you, hey, you know what, shrink it down, but pay your debt down, and then you got something. But he was, he had his own ideas and he wanted to continue to expand. So he was going and expanding, and the bank would say, okay, your interest and your principal is due this month. And he's like, no, let's just put it off for a month. I got a couple big deals. And he got away with that for a little while. And then the bank said, no, you're not getting away with this anymore. So he needed to raise some capital. So, he came to me and he said, hey, I wasn't a threat to him. I wasn't going to go and, walk into his other territories and take clients from him. So he said, hey, I've got this little company in Pennsylvania, and, you move there and pay down your debt and move back in 5 years. And it sounded like a pretty good plan.
I see. Gotcha. And so when you went there, this boutique business, you and your wife, little office, and specifically, like, what were the, how did the business work? What were the mechanics? What were with the wash laundry machines and
so you'd sign contracts to operate in maybe an apartment building, or we had some colleges we were working with. We had some we had different types of places, mostly apartment buildings. So you'd sign a contract, and they were fairly long-term contracts, anywhere between 5 and 10 years, and you'd place your equipment in there.
Washing, laundry, dryers.
Yeah, home operated. I mean, there was no electronics back then. That came a little later. And you'd and you'd operate, you'd go and collect the money and you'd pay them a percentage, and you'd make the repairs on the equipment when it broke down. So, I kind of quickly realized what our place was. We had a place, and you know, basically we did things a little bit different than everybody else. Number one, we had a hard and fast rule that, anybody who calls, you return their call within 2 hours. That's it. Even if it's just to tell them, hey, I don't have an answer for you, but I'm returning your call, and I want you to know that you're important. And so there was that, and then we had live. Some of the larger companies went to call centers, but we had people you could actually talk to, and
In a little office, like cubicles or something, or
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And then a little bit later, some of the electronics came on, where you can actually, we actually had like infrared readers on the machines where you could actually give people reports as far as exactly how many quarters, because it was a cash business, and I got tired of hearing, hey, how do I know you're not stealing from me? Because I wasn't stealing from them. I wasn't going out and collecting the machines, but I knew, we had some measures in place, but they weren't perfect. They weren't great. And nobody did back then. We'd catch people stealing from time to time. We'd fire them and that type of thing. But, I never really had a good answer. So once we got the electronics, we put them on there and we'd send people reports, showing them exactly how much money came into the machine. And nobody else did that, in the industry.
Yeah.
So, it was, that was something, it was kind of a leg up for us. And, and we grew 15 to 20% a year, year over year. We were growing, so we got about 20 years into the business. And by that point, we were a legitimate, mid-market company.
What did it look like then? So you're buying these routes. So I picture you're buying their contracts, their machines. Maybe they had a van or truck or whatever, or two, and their employees.
Yeah.
We're probably only one or two or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there were times when we brought on more employees, and and that was interesting because you'd see, we had certain standards. We'd look in the employee files, and yeah, so and so manager of such and such apartment doesn't want this service tech there anymore because he was smoking pot in the laundry room.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, hello. I mean,
but they didn't fire him. They kept
didn't
him.
fire him. I mean,
gave him other buildings or whatever.
Right. They just said, okay, you're not going there anymore.
Did you publish an employee standard for the people that you were going to hire?
Yeah.
Like, did you have that written down?
Yeah, we had an employee handbook, which employee handbooks are interesting because they're growing living things, because people find loopholes in them, and then you have to say, okay, you can't bring handguns into a, you can't bring handguns into a, those are not, that's, you can't have a handgun with you when you're, when you're at work. You can't, you can't say the N word. I mean, Pittsburgh's a very blue collar town, and blue collar attitudes, and some people were very free about saying racial things, and no, you can't.
But not at your company.
Not in our company, right?
Right.
And it was kind of interesting, like, because someone would leave the company and then they'd file for unemployment, and we're like, no, you can't have unemployment. You left on your own. But and they'd say, well, so and so told me I had to have a handgun, and we'd bring out our employee manual and say, what does paragraph 18 of paragraph 18 say? Well, no handguns allowed. Okay, the judge would say, okay, yeah, that never happened. So
yeah, I think that's really helpful. How because see, again, this goes back to some of why you're so great to have around. I'm so grateful is you walk this path, and for you to say right there, the employee manual is a living, breathing thing. There's loopholes, and then you got to close them. And that doesn't mean you failed, or it doesn't mean you did anything. You just kind of fix it, and then off you go. But you keep writing it down and have a standard. And it sounds like you and your business partner, who's your ex-wife, were very clear on what you wanted and what kind of company you wanted to have. And it's a rather simple, kind of ordinary Main Street, blue collarish type business. No pun intended. Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. But you had standards, and you had a way that you did it.
Yeah, we did. And it's funny. I sold my company 10 years ago, but I was back in Pittsburgh last spring, and I took my old service manager. He's still working for the company that we sold to. I took him out for dinner. It was really, really great to see him. I mean, he'd been with us for 20, 30 years. We'd worked together. And he said, you know what? We never knew how good we had it. We never knew what a great company we really were. He said, I've been working with this company the last 10 years, and, we were so much better than them. We were, this is a multi-billion-dollar company they're working for, and a national company. And, he said, things were just so much clearer, and, we all knew what we wanted to accomplish. And, we built a really good team. A lot of credit goes to my ex-wife. She was operational, and she set a lot of those standards. I was the guy who went out and grew the business. I was the rainmaker. She was the person who put everything in order. But
pretty important to get all those contracts and close those deals and buy routes and things. And you were you were going through the journey in your mind. You said, okay, so then we got about 20 years into it, which would have been 2007, 2008.
Yeah. Yeah. And in my marriage, just wasn't working. And, we got to that point, and we're like, and I said, hey, it's time for us to part ways in our marriage, but we both decided, hey, we have a good business here. We've done this well. And we decided, to keep going in our business. And that lasted about 5 years, and it got really, really difficult. We were fighting over custody, and, we'd have a meeting in the morning and then be in the court in the afternoon, and it just was not working. So, it just came to the time where I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't really want to work with you anymore. I don't really want to have a relationship with you anymore. Let's just sell this thing, and let's part ways. And she agreed. And, coincidentally, there was kind of a cycle in the industry of about every 7-8 years, consolidation. And there were 3 national companies at the time. And, coincidentally, the cycle hit. And, when I recognized, look, this is our time. This is our time to sell it. It's our time to get out. Because if we don't, we're going to be waiting another 7 years to sell this thing. And I don't want to wait another 7 years. And coincidentally, like, all 3 of these national companies contacted us within a couple of weeks of the time, and they said, are you ready to sell? And we're like, yeah, we're ready to do this. So we settled on one company, and we closed the thing in about 2.5 weeks. It was pretty amazing.
Did you hire did you have outside counsel or business broker or something, or how did you handle negotiating?
Yeah, we had an attorney who was actually a family friend, but actually a very high powered acquisition attorney, to work with us. And, we'd been down the road a couple times before. We had offers, and, probably maybe about 8 or 9 years into it, we had a pretty serious offer, and we were ready to do it. We were ready to sell it, move back to Chicago. And, we went all through due diligence. We got, within days of closing, and the company pulled back. They said, we're going to lower your acquisition price by $1 million. And we're like, no, forget it. We walked away from it, which was, in a lot of ways a bitter pill to swallow, but a great growing opportunity, just to say, okay, it's time to pull the big boy pants up, get rid of all the bitterness, and just go out and grow this thing, and, get it to the point where when we do want to sell it, it's going to be it's going to be worth it, you know.
So what year was that roughly when you had the first offer that got close? And then what year did you actually sell it?
It was 1997 when we got our first offer, and it was 2013 when we actually sold it.
Okay, so actually 16 years later, but you said the first offer, you felt like you made a decision and something changed, or you got more focused on growth to the point where did you think at that point we are going to sell this someday for sure? I don't know when.
Yeah, I mean, that was always a thought, you know. I mean, we put everything we had into the business, you know. I mean, we didn't you know, we weren't taking a lot of money. We didn't have big salaries. We weren't taking big bonuses, you know. We were just kind of scraping by, you know, to take what we needed, you know, to live, because we knew we were creating our equity in our company. So we knew at some point, yeah, that was the end game, was to cash out. And you know, the first offer we got was pretty good. You know, my mom had cancer. You know, I knew her time was limited. I wanted to get back to Chicago and spend some time with her before she passed away. But you know, it fell through, and and I felt like we'd been played, you know, by the company. It was a big company, and I felt, you know, we opened all our books to them, showed them all our contracts, and then they pulled out, you know. So it was scary, but you know, just had to put our heads down and, you know, go at it, and you know, improve the metrics of the company, you know, and you know, you do that day by day.
So how many employees were there when you acquired it in 87, 88?
Or two.
And then in 97, roughly?
97, I'd say we were up to 25, maybe, you know.
And
We
when you
sold
sold it then?
50.
About 50.
Yeah.
And what did the company look like at the point that you sold it? What were people doing? Did you have a leadership team, like a core trusted leaders? You mentioned the
It was
general
basically,
manager.
yeah, I mean, it was my wife and myself, and then we'd promoted, you know, we had a service manager, you know, and he was really good at what he did. He was a good guy, solid guy, and we had promoted, you know, we had someone who started with us when she was about 21. She just wanted to answer phones. That's really what she wanted to do. And she was good at it. Everybody really loved her. They'd ask for her, they loved her. So you know, we made her, you know, we put her in charge of customer service, you know, as a manager. And then we had someone who was we had an installation manager, and then an office, you know, a warehouse manager. So yeah, we had a team of about 4. And you know, and my failing was I never really was able to develop a sales team. You know, I mean, had salespeople, but you know, they came and went, and you know, I did the heavy lifting, you know, the whole time. It was me. I had to, and I liked it, but you know, I really wanted to develop a sales team, and you know, for whatever reason, I wasn't all that good at it. It just never happened for me.
But you were a very good salesperson, and I recall you and I discussed quite a few years ago when I first met you that you had Sandler sales training, and that you were into that, interested, worked at it, got better. And so now I'm going to dip into the current world a bit, but I saw the other day that you have somebody you're coaching who is a startup founder, and he mentioned how helpful you've been in coaching him to do sales himself, right?
Right.
So you were very, very interested, very good at selling, just didn't ever get to the point of building the team.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You know, when you're young, you know, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you know, I got a lot of sales just by being the most enthusiastic guy out there, you know. And you know, I just had this energy, and you know, I was out there, and you know, come on, let's do this together. And you know, people bought into it. You know, and when I got into my 40s and probably early 50s, it just wasn't working anymore, you know. And I realized that, like, the stuff I was doing, it was getting stale, it wasn't working. And so, you know, I enrolled in Sandler, you know, and you know, and they have, they have a system, and the system for me, I implemented, and and it worked a lot better for me, and it's not, you still have to bring yourself out, you still have to bring your own personality out, but the system itself worked a lot better for me, and and I believed in it, and so now when I work with people, yeah, I mean, I take some of the elements of Sandler. There's good stuff in there. Um, and digging for pain, and that type of thing. And yeah, it works, and this particular client, he was struggling with some things, and I said, hey, what are you doing to dig for pain? And he really wasn't doing much of it, and then he really began to do it. And he's been seeing results from it. So it's been pretty cool to see that.
So sometimes it can be beneficial to others that you weren't able to build the team that you wanted to. Like it might be beneficial for you to reflect because now you have some hindsight that you're looking in the mirror and you're not the same guy anymore. You've become more reflective. You've done inner work through a coaching certification program, and now you're advising these, just like the guy you just talked about. So you see things differently today. So if you were to, and I'll say, like, that's a super common thing where a business owner is a great salesperson and they have the owner's advantage. They're the owner, they make decisions, the buck stops with them.
Right.
And but then it's hard to take that step of building a sales team for them. It's difficult to build a sales team. In hindsight, what advice would you give to somebody today who is struggling in the same way that you were?
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough because you have your own standards of what it is. You see a prospect and you're like, okay, this could become a customer, and what you need to do to get that person. And then you watch somebody who you've hired bumble through it and lose a sale. And, and it's really, really tough to see that. So, my advice to somebody would be, take a niche part of your business, that you want to develop, and hire somebody and let that person go at it, because they'll make their own mistakes, but it's not going to hurt you because, it's not like this interactive part of the business where you're turning over a big client and they screw it up, and all of a sudden, all this business is in jeopardy because they screw up, something that you've built. Have them start building a niche part of the business that you haven't really developed yet, and see where they go with it.
Even while you continue doing the sales of the major part of the business that is going to keep it running. I think that's really great advice, because then your fear of like losing it all doesn't kick in or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, part of running a business is just controlling your anxiety. It's a big part of it, and it goes, it goes to health. It goes to your, to self-care and health and that type of thing. And so you have to be able to control, some of the anxiety that you would feel. Like, if I turned over a major client to a new salesperson, I don't think I'd sleep at night. It just, and I mean, I've walked into big clients with new salespeople, and and just let them observe how it goes. But even then, there's anxiety. Are they going to say the wrong thing? Are they going to say something stupid? So you have to have a certain amount of trust in them, but you also have to trust yourself in that. And that, hey, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. And you said something big there about managing anxiety being a huge part of owning a business. And again, that comes from experience and your own inner work, because most people wouldn't admit, or it might feel like weakness to say, maybe I do have anxiety about building my business and what's going on. and all those things. So that's wisdom speaking, and or the kind of the language of the heart there, Scott. So thank you.
Well, I mean, anybody who doesn't own up to it just either isn't seeing it or is denying it. It's just, you know, that's part of building a business is,
Well, they need somebody vulnerable like you to go first and say it, and then it's easier to go, you know what? I do have that. That's true. And then we could work on it. There's kind of two, I don't know, there's two ways of in my mind to go back and look at your story. I picture you in your late 20s saying 5 years, we're going to do this thing, and then we'll go back to Chicago. And then you get about 10 years in and you do work to exit it. And as you said, your mom is sick and you don't. And then it ends up going another 20 years before you sell it. So it's like a 5-year time horizon, 10, and then it ends up going 20 more. So just thinking, like, I wonder, you think back who you were you, as you looked at a 5-year time horizon, did you and your what's your ex-wife's first name? Gina. Did you and Gina think, all right, this is what we're going to do for 5 years, this is how it's going to work, this is what it's going to look like, this is what we're going to do? Did you do some of that in the beginning?
We did. Yeah. Yeah, we did. And as we as we acquired companies and acquired more employees, it just, and we grew, you had a couple factors. You had the natural excitement of the growth of the business. But you also had this, it was your baby, and, you had this baby and you're like, okay, is this really the time, this really the time to, to sell the baby? And it really wasn't, I mean, even though, yeah, I mean, we had a child within that 5-year period. And
okay, so first child comes along in that first 5-year period.
Yeah. And we had made friendships in Pittsburgh, in this new town that we were in. And my and then your our son, his play dates, he's having friends, and you're into the lifestyle at that point. And you're like, okay, we don't really have to sell this thing right now. We don't have to move back to Chicago. But then, when my mom got sick, it was like, okay, that was a natural kind of driver to get back there. And then, it didn't happen. And, it was disappointment, but, and plus we felt like we'd kind of gotten played by this, this national company. So, there was some of that anger and disappointment that
right.
you had, they had to work through. But for me, anger was always a driver. Like I'd get angry and then I'd be like the Tasmanian devil. I'd just go like hyper speed.
Selling machine.
Yeah. Like, okay, I'll show you guys, and I'd go out and sign big contracts and grow and, more growth.
Right. So you kind of get going and it's working, and then you don't want to step off. Like, let's keep doing this thing. Let's keep building it. So what was it like, Scott? Eventually you have 2 children. And what was the kind of best of times when you think, I don't know, 10, 15 years or something, and you said, like what I heard in there is, I'm out selling and I'm out doing the rainmaking, and if it weren't Regina back in the office, she's like doing the management of the office, and that person who went from a receptionist to having more responsibility, the two of you were a kind of power pair couple building this thing. When it was like the best of times, managing family, kids, and the business, like what was that like? The really good stuff.
Yeah, it was, I kind of felt like, I kind of felt like I could handle anything that got thrown at me, like there was, I mean, I got into this groove where I was, I was bringing in huge contracts almost monthly, and it was funny because when I sold my company, they said, we want you to do what you did for your company, for us. Fine, and I saw the output that I was putting out, and it was so much more than their best salespeople that they had for years and years and years. I mean, it was like, and Pittsburgh wasn't a major market, it was kind of a, it's top 20, but right at the bottom of, of the 20. So not really, no, never a growing market, never, it's very conservative, lost population, I don't know, 10, 15 years in a row. I mean, so it was not an easy place to do business, but my, my output, what I was doing was so much more than anybody else. Um, so there was that, there was like, if I'd set up at a trade show, I mean, within an hour, you know, I'd have 8 or 10 contracts in my pocket. People, I was the guy, they just come to me. Oh, we're building this new building. We need you. How quick can you get us a contract? Okay. I'll have it to you next week. I mean, it was that kind of thing. And we had a good team behind us. So I knew that, as we were doing this, we were going to do a great job for them. And then, I was raising my kids, my kids were 7 years apart, but my son was a nationally ranked tennis player. So, I would take him to tournaments, first all over the state, and then all over the, the mid states, Atlantic, mid states, and then all over the country, and I'd get off a plane and, I got to call this guy and this guy, and I'd be working as I was, kind of acting as his road manager, to get him to his tournaments, make sure he had, hitting partners and make sure he's eating right, at the tournament. And so it was like, I just had this feeling like, hey, I can do anything that gets thrown at me, except for my marriage. My marriage was kind of falling apart, and and I tried. I did try to straighten that out, but it never. It wasn't. It just wasn't working.
So what I hear in that is a pathway for business builders is to have a business that is somewhat Main Street, but what your standards are and how the business should operate. And an owner can be the lead driving salesperson as long as they have somebody back in the office and the right kind of people that are going to manage everything. That is a viable way to grow. Plus you grew by acquisition, in some cases, buying up some of these routes, smaller routes of people. And that description of there was a period of time where I felt like I could do anything because of knowing that everything was covered behind me. I can feel that. And then as you shared about, but the one thing I didn't do is marriage, right? And so now you're a coach, and now you're working with these startup companies and advising them, and sometimes some money. And I know you care about these people. They want to grow their business, so that's kind of first, but you also have this nod to, and we want to be right inside. We want to find joy. We want to acknowledge the anxiety and not be like kind of covered up by that, and work on family. If you were to go back, now you're a coach now. If you were Coach Scott were to go back and talk to business building, laundry business building Scott, like what are some things that you would say to that Scott, which of course could then be helpful to business builders who are listening to this, who are in that journey?
For me, it all starts and ends with integrity. The integrity of who you are, of the four agreements.
Good book.
Yeah, great book. And I know a couple of people in our group, actually run their business through the four agreements. But integrity is foremost. And I'm not sure when I started my business, my own integrity was completely developed. I mean, I was very, if a bill came in and it was 30 days, sometimes I'd hold it to 60 or beyond, and well, they can, that's not the way to run your business. I mean, you make an agreement to pay your bill and pay it in 30 days, whatever your agreement is, hold yourself to those agreements. And and if other people can't be held to those agreements, don't work with them. And don't allow your employees to tell people that you're going to do something in a certain amount of time and then not do it. Look, it happens. Maybe you say you're going to be out there, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon to fix a laundry machine, and you can't get out there until the morning. Well, that happens, but then you call someone and say, hey, you know what? I know I told you this, but hey, we've had some circumstances and we're not going to get out there until the morning. People understand that. They get it. They just want to know that you care. So, it's all about integrity, and it's all about, and that's what I try to impart to my clients. Like, at the end of the day, your word is all you really have. And it's interesting because I've been going through the 4 agreements with a client of mine, and we read through chapter 2, which was, be impeccable with your word. And for me, being impeccable with my word was always saying, okay, if I tell you something, then I'm going to do it. That's what it meant to me. But he took it a lot further, and he said, hey, being impeccable with your word isn't only about keeping your promises, it's about what comes out of your mouth. It's like, if an employee screws up and you say, hey, you're an idiot, they may actually believe they're an idiot because you said that. You don't want to say that. You want to say, hey, what happened here? What happened to make you, what happened, to make you lose your agreement here? What happened to yourself? What's going on? And that's kind of the way to handle things.
So yeah, I hear you saying it's important to look inward and look at, take a book like the 4 Agreements and run yourself personally through the filter of, am I following those agreements? And we have just a few minutes left. I want to honor your time, and I feel like we could have another conversation about you and the journey. Maybe we will. But so you sold the company, worked for that acquiring company for a few years, and wasn't really a great fit for you or for them, and you left, and then you went on a coaching journey, and you did some coaching school, went to coaching school, but also did the journey inside for yourself and did the coaching work before you started taking that modality and working with other people. And now you live in Colorado, and you're kind of, you just told me you have some buddies coming out to share your home in Colorado with them and go skiing. And you work for about, most days, you said, from 6 a.m. to noon doing your startup advisory work, and then you'd ski, and you've had some health challenges, but I would say you've transcended those, and you've had it. We're all gonna get the call, but you had a close call, or it was more imminent for you, and you're doing great today. Been skiing, getting up to your quota of skiing. So just to kind of put a bow on this in the last couple minutes, where are you now, and what's going on now, and kind of take us out with that, Scott?
Yeah, I got diagnosed with Crohn's about 2.5 years ago, and I've always been in perfect health up to that point, and I've had a couple surgeries, but I spent almost over 2 months in the hospital last year. So, and some of it, was dire. There were days when I wasn't sure I was going to come out of, I wasn't going to leave the hospital alive. And I had to put things in order, put my estate in order, say what I need to say to my close friends and my wife and my kids. And I always kind of believed I was going to come out of it, but I did, and you don't go through something like that without really going through a lot of changes, and some of the changes I've gone through, it's not always comfortable, like I'll tell my friends, hey, I'll finish a conversation and say, I love you. Like, they sputter, and it's okay. They don't have to, they don't have to tell me that, but I want them to know, and I've had conversations like, hey, I want you to know what you meant to me, what your friendship has meant to me, what the impact you've had with me in my life. And, and sometimes we end up the conversation crying together, but, and it's not always comfortable, but it's something that, that's where my journey's taken me. And, it's something I feel like I need to say to people, and, the people who have had negative impact on me, it's just not important anymore. I don't have to think about them, yeah, I do. But when I do, I'm like, hey, I can think of something that I may want to do next year or in the next year, or accomplish or travel somewhere. And it's a better use of my time than to think about somebody who screwed me over or, was a jerk. It's just not that important anymore.
Wow. Yeah. And you have the lived experience to share that with us, that we should remember to similarly interact with people. So thank you for that. Scott, first of all, people can find you on LinkedIn, and I enjoy your LinkedIn writing and some of the stories that you tell and how you tie that into leadership. So people can look you up there at Scott, Kallick. And also, if there's a founder who's probably in their first 5-10 years or so, and something you said resonated, and they'd like to have a conversation with you to learn more about you and maybe bring up a couple things that they're struggling with, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, they can send me a message through LinkedIn. Always open to having conversations with people. I don't charge the first time I talk to somebody. Just, open to having that conversation and learning about them and their business. They can also email me at skallick58@gmail.com. So yeah, I'm always.
Do you have a website right now?
I do. It's transformative business coaching, but you can also find it at scottkallick.com.
The wonderful thing about Google is we put your name in there, and your name and then business, we're going to find you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's great. Thank you for your service in this podcast for the Business Builder Way, Scott, and thank you for what you give to our community. It means a lot to me, and I've seen how you've helped other people, so I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
All
Go
right.
get them. We'll talk to you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you for tuning into the Business Builder Way podcast. If this episode spoke to you, click that subscribe button and share it with a friend. That's how this message gets out into the world. If it is helpful for us to have a short conversation, I'd love to do that. Send me an email at wayne@businessbuildercamp.com.